You're listening to the Free to Be Mindful podcast, which provides bite-sized tips for busy parents, educators, and anyone working with kids. These real talk conversations focus on mindful living, mental health, and personal growth, helping all to learn, grow, and inspire with mindfulness in mind. I'm your host, Vanessa de Jesus Guzman, educator, licensed professional counselor, entrepreneur, and mom. I'm passionate about helping folks live life with peace of mind and ease of heart while not losing their, well, you know, here we go. Hello and welcome back to the Free to Be Mindful podcast. I hope that you're feeling good, looking good, and doing better in this world than you were yesterday. So we are in June, and I have seen so many pictures on my social media feed of proms and of graduations, whether it be from pre-K graduations to now coming up high school graduations, at least here in the Northeast. I know that the West and the South sometimes finish before the Northeast does. And it had me reminded of the different phases of life that we go in the different stages of life that we're in. So depending on how we do things, and of course there is no right or wrong, but I remember even in my own personal life of going through a wave of bridal showers and then weddings, then another wave of baby showers and baptisms and now communions and kids' birthdays to graduations. And as we celebrate these exciting things, there is also a wave that seems to happen, at least more sporadically, of funerals, of wakes, of repasses, of times that we just get together and remember the good times and remember perhaps those we've lost. And all of this are natural pieces of life. But of course, sometimes we'd rather not go through some experiences. And these are big things that perhaps call for big gatherings. However, there are a lot of small pieces of life as well that perhaps we don't have as big of a gathering, but that can be quite as impacting as well. For example, finishing a school year for a child transitioning from one grade to another is big, especially if they're going from one school to another, from one level, right? From elementary to middle or middle to high, high to college. We transition many times of our lives from one job to another, even from one relationship to another, whether that be in friendships, in platonic relationships, or maybe in romantic relationships. And even with relationships in our families, they go through different stages as well. And all of these are normal parts of the circle of life, to quote the Lion King. And it seems sometimes, depending what part of life that we're in, it calls for different reactions, or so we think. So sometimes we think of big celebrations, let's say like graduations. We think that they are filled with happiness because we're moving from one piece of our life to another stage of our life. However, we must come to acknowledge that sometimes not all of the feelings that go with one event can be all positive or can be all negative. Different things call for different feelings, and there is no right or wrong. So, for example, if you have ever been to a wake or to a funeral, not everyone there may be filled with visible signs of sadness. And I say visible because, of course, we all miss the person who's passed away. However, sometimes you do see people laughing. You do see people smiling, especially after not seeing someone in a really long time. You see family members filled with gratitude of those who came to show their respects, while at the same time filled with sadness. It reminds me of the movie Inside Out, when the core memories begin to shift in different colors, where they can be a lot of different feelings all at the same time. We have to remember that as we go through these transitional events in our lives, that they don't always fit the mold of the feeling that they're in. So for example, going from one grade to the other, We can be really happy, or kids can be really happy finishing that one grade. Maybe they were not a fan of their class that year, and they're really thrilled to go on to the next grade, but they're going to miss their teacher. Or maybe they're happy from graduating high school, but they're filled with hesitation and uncertainty of what the next stage of life will bring. And it's important that while we go through these different stages of life, again, not only these monumental events, but even different stages in our relationships, we have to remember that there is no right or wrong way to express our emotions, and there isn't a wrong or right way to feel either. If we're really aware of the way that we express our emotions, we may catch ourselves acting a part just because that is what's expected, as opposed to just being real and just being whatever the current moment brings. So, for example, going way back, I remember after dating someone and after breaking up, I remember crying and making it a big deal while I was on the phone with this person because I thought that that was a part that I was supposed to play. And I thought that if I didn't act this way, that it was a little abnormal, when in reality, inside, I was thrilled that I could move on from this part of my life that it really wasn't serving me and really I wasn't happy in. And sometimes we play these parts a little bit too long, and sometimes we don't even realize that we are playing a part. So, for example, when we are transitioning from one relationship to the other, we may think to ourselves, oh, we have to be sad. We're going to miss these qualities about this person. We're going to miss spending time with this person. But that is when we focus so much on the past. And sometimes thinking about the future can also bring another set of emotions, like having a lot of uncertainty, having a lot of doubt that good things will even come into play, having a lot of doubt that the next person we find may be as good as the last person we had. However, putting so much attention on the past or concentrating on the future that has not yet taken place really throws us out of alignment and out of the space of mindfulness of just being. Imagine if we paid a little bit closer attention to where our feet are right now, to the things that we are experiencing right now. Imagine how much we are passing up on because we are focused on the past, or we are focused on the uncertainty of the future, that we sometimes miss what's happening in front of our very eyes. And this is not only true when we're thinking about our own lives, but if you're a parent or educator, think about the lives of your kids as well. Sometimes we look back at pictures and we can feel certain types of ways and get a little bit sentimental because their faces no longer look the same. And other times we really focus so much on the future and what's going to happen next year and where are they going to go to college and what are they going to major in, that we pass up the very moments that are happening in the right here and right now. And we don't realize what it is that we're missing on until way after the moment is gone. And then again, we find ourselves in the sentimental phase of, oh, the time has passed, or look how much has changed, or why aren't things the same? And we focus on those things when we truly don't appreciate them when they are actually happening. So I wanted to share this message with you today because I find very often that we're placing so much attention on the past or on the future that we pass up what's happening in the right here and right now. And then instead of just being our most authentic, genuine selves, we seem to play these roles as though we are starring in a Hollywood movie. We put expectations on for ourselves, and sometimes those around us can also place expectations on us to show up a certain way, to act a certain way, to react a certain way, to do and say certain things. That I want you to ask yourself, is all of that really necessary? Is it necessary to put on a mask and do what the masses do when it's not really you? And what's the worst that could happen if you show up as yourself? If you laugh when everyone else is crying? If you share your feelings of sadness when everyone has positive feelings? If you are happy to be ending something and putting something behind you, when people expect you to be upset. I can't imagine what it's like to be a writer or a director and to put a story together from just a brainstorming piece to something that comes on screen for us to enjoy. However, I can only imagine the attention to detail that there is to see a story from start to finish. It actually reminds me of the show This Is Us, which, if you're listening to this in real time, recently finished. Can't imagine what it was like to put that story together and to span the moments through time of going back and forth from the future to the past to the present and everywhere in between. However, in our real lives, we really don't have to place that much effort to make things happen. Now, of course, if we want to accomplish big goals, that may take a lot of effort, of course. However, to just be us, to just enjoy the everyday, to take joy in the small moments, to take advantage of getting fresh air, to admire the sunset, to look at the faces of those we love with our own eyes instead of just through a lens. All of these things don't take as much effort as putting a story that spans from beginning to end. And when you really think about it, we are creating our stories in those moments. But the story is so much more enjoyable when you're actually living in it, as opposed to planning so much, as opposed to critiquing everything, as opposed to always thinking about what's to come. Are those things necessary? Yes, of course, to a degree. But it's also necessary, if you want the most out of life, to enjoy the everyday things in between, the parts where you're stuck in traffic, the nonsense fights about nothing, the ability to call your loved one and know that they're going to pick up on the other end of the line, the hot cups of coffee, the smiles between friends, the long-winded stories your children tell you, the long drives to that special place, the ability in taking joy in working out or another hobby that you may enjoy. All of these things, as little and as minute as they may seem, are indeed the big things, the important pieces that we call life, that we only really take advantage of when we're looking back on them. It is my challenge to you to take advantage of these little pieces each and every day, and to remember that the main role in your life is you, and there is no right or wrong way to play it. You don't have to become an actor or put on a mask to make things happen. Be your best self without hesitation, without overthinking, just enjoying your life, because our breaths are counted and we just never know what tomorrow may bring. And of course, if you're a mom and need assistance in any of these different themes that we talked about today, or in any of the Free to Be Mindful podcast episodes, I invite you to join me for the first Monday evening of every month for the Amiga Mom Support Group, where we have the space and the support system to just be you, to share anything that's on your mind about the aspect of motherhood or womanhood, and to receive that support that you may be needing. And if you are a parent who also needs help in talking to your child and getting the results, getting that first time listening, I invite you to get my free PDF guide, Talking to Kids Without Losing Your Cool, a guide for parents and for educators. Both of these resources can be found in the show notes, which you can find by swiping up or visiting my website, freetobemindful.com. So right now, regardless of where you are or what you're doing, take a breath in through your nose and let the breath out as you take in the sights of whatever room or space you're in. Try to pick something out that perhaps you overlook on a day-to-day. Maybe it's the picture frames that are always there, the books on the shelves that never seem to change, the tree in your yard that you kind of ignore. Perhaps it's the cloud in the skies Or if you're in your car, something on your dashboard. There's so many pieces of life that we sometimes overlook, but it's every single molecule that we see, that we feel, that we touch, that we're able to experience, that really make life worth living. As you take your next inhale in, think about how you can create space for the things that you love, for the things that you enjoy, especially if you haven't done them in quite some time. What can you do to your schedule? What can you say to those who live with you to make things happen so that you can enjoy life as it's meant to be enjoyed? As you reflect on this question, let's take 3 long breaths in with longer exhalations out as we plan to live more authentic lives, filled with happiness, filled with purpose, filled with authenticity. One last breath in and a long exhale out. And with that, I wish you a great week. I hope you enjoyed this week's show. It would mean a ton if you took this moment to review the Free to Be Mindful podcast on the platform you catch your favorite shows. That quick and easy act lets me know what you enjoy, and it helps others find the podcast too. And of course, don't forget to subscribe so you can listen along next week. In the meantime, I welcome you to catch me on social media at Counselor V de Jesus. And as always, remember, in a world where you are free to be anything that you want to be, you are always free to be mindful. Catch you next week.